You've been following my channel for a while, you know I've basically been in the market, kind of interested in upgrading my iMac Pro for the past couple years. And every turn there is always something that goes unaccording to plan. In fact, I recall thinking that I was pretty interested in upgrading to the Mac Pro before they announced it in 2019. Then it ended up being way more expensive than I thought. In today's video, it's not news, it's more of like a personal one. I thought I would go into exactly what I'm looking for in my next Mac and why there's multiple answers to the same question, and it all depends on how badly Apple botches this release. Let's begin. I haven't been to McDonald's anytime recently either, but the top of my list when it comes to what I could see myself upgrading to is still the redesigned iMac. I know that a lot of hope has been lost now that the 24-inch iMac has come out, and it's very likely that the larger size iMac will look pretty similar to that one, but if by some miracle some of you guys that are speculating about the iMac Pro getting revived and having this drastic redesign, if you guys end up being right, that's going to be at the top of my list. A 30 to 32 inch, no chin, black bezeled iMac that doesn't have all the XDR tech, but it does have a chip faster than the M1, it's reasonably priced, and it's able to basically cater to that iPad Pro on a stick demographic, and it could look very similar to the Pro Display XDR, except it's got a computer in it. I'm totally fine if it's only USB-C on the back. As long as I get my 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, I'm happy. If anything has less than 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, I'm less happy, and I'm less inclined to upgrade because that's what I have on my iMac Pro, and I don't want to sacrifice on the Thunderbolt connectivity. So I don't care too much about the webcam, I don't care too much about Face ID being on there, although that would be great. The speaker quality even is not super important to me, as long as I can just get that generic, as so many of you call it, non-iconic, boring design that has thin bezels. That way the dynamic user interface can just be completely what I'm looking at, and I don't have to be distracted by some god-awful chin just so that the side view can look nice. Then I'm still taking that. But as you guys know, I'm kind of planning on that not happening. In fact, I'm predicting that the larger size iMac will have a chin and might still have white bezels. Maybe there's an iMac Pro in the works that has black bezels, but that one probably will still have a chin. So if there's any scenario where that dream iMac doesn't get made, that's when I go towards my backup plan, which is either the Mac Mini or the Mac Pro. Before I address those, I should just acknowledge that I have tried reviewing laptops several times in the past. I really appreciated and enjoyed the power of the MacBook Air with the M1 chip in it. It surpassed my expectations in regards to everyday performance and battery life, but because I use my 12.9-inch iPad Pro so regularly, and I have that at my desk most of the time anyway, I've just discovered that having an iPad with a keyboard case and a MacBook is just too redundant. Even when I had the 16-inch MacBook Pro, it felt like a little bit much to be rocking around this 13-inch 2-in-1 laptop and then this 16-inch laptop. So because of my workflow and because I'm home so much throughout the year, I think I've decided that a desktop makes sense for my workflow better than a laptop does. I know that I could close up the laptop and basically dock it somewhere on my desk to a larger size monitor, and that might be something I consider, but my guess is, based on the rollout of the M1 chip, that whatever the next generation is, the M1X or the M2, it's going to find its way into the next generation MacBook Pros, which, don't get me wrong, I'm excited to check those out, and I do agree those will probably be some of the most popular Macs ever, but they're most likely also going to put that M1X into some other type of desktop. Bloomberg was saying we could see a higher-end Mac Mini that does have 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, and that one would be rocking the M1X chip, and that I would be much more tempted in because I already have several external monitors I can plug into, and I don't care too much about mobility, again, because I have my iPad Pro for everyday laptop stuff. There's not been a huge number of circumstances where I've needed to edit a high-resolution video on the go, especially during the pandemic. It's like, yeah, I'm good, I'll have a desk, and the M1X Mac Mini is more than likely going to be much cheaper than a 16-inch MacBook Pro, and probably even the 13-inch MacBook Pro. Even if they have the old legacy ports and mini LED and MagSafe, there's still a whole display and a keyboard and trackpad that has to come with those laptops that the M1X Mac Mini doesn't have to come with. I can provide all the keyboard, mouse, and monitor, so I'm okay going going for value because it means I could probably spend more money on additional storage, hopefully get it up to, 4 terabytes or 8 terabytes or something really, really big. And knowing how affordable the Mac Mini is, it would probably save me a whole bunch of money compared to buying the 32-inch iMac or iMac Pro, whatever they end up calling it. So the M1X Mac Mini is very high on my list because I am a big fan of all-in-ones, but if Apple's not going to design my dream Mac, then I'll just get the fastest, cheapest Mac desktop I can and supply my own monitor that fits my needs best with thin bezels, maybe even a higher refresh rate in the future. And I've found some very compelling monitors that I would love using that are cheaper than the Pro stand. So I'm not too worried about finding a monitor that fits my needs. But then why is the Mac Pro up to debate? Some of you may be wondering. Well, the M1X Mac Mini is a very practical, value-based purchase decision, but at the same time, it is a little bit unexciting to imagine. I've been using this iMac Pro for almost 4 years now. I've gotten very comfortable with it, and it's still editing and live streaming as much as I need these days. And yeah, I'm sure the M1X chip is going to outperform my 8-core Intel Xeon every day of the week in all circumstances. That's great and all, but if I'm buying another Mac, I'm probably not going to want to buy another high-end Mac for many, many years. So the idea of the Mac Pro is up for discussion to me because my budget for replacing the iMac Pro was around $5,000. And if they're able to lower the entry price of the Mac Pro, right? Because I think a lot of the reason it's so expensive is because a lot of the modularity and customization on that internal and the case being able to come off, and the fact that it's also just a very big computer. I didn't get to see one until earlier this year. But once I finally saw it, it is a large machine, and it has to have a very optimized thermal design for those Intel processors that are going away soon. And we know that within the next year, we're probably going to be seeing an Apple Silicon-powered Mac Pro, and Bloomberg has alluded it to being a lot smaller and more compact and not needing to take up as much space as the older cheese grater Mac Pro, which honestly, design-wise, is not my favorite thing. Again, I like all-in-ones, so I don't like the idea of having a giant, tall tower. Some people like that, but it's not really for me. I'm okay if they make it more like the G4 Cube and make it just maybe the size of like 3 or 4 Mac Minis stacked on top of each other. And if that is rocking something even more powerful than the M1X, and the starting price is below $6,000, and I can get the M2T chip or whatever the next generation Apple Silicon is that's supposed to be able to outperform even the 28-core Intel Mac Pro, then that would give me an insane amount of overhead. And if I could get my hands on one and make that my daily editing machine, I probably wouldn't need to replace it for 4 to 5 years. Kinda would cover the overhead just like my iMac Pro did back when I got that. M1X Mac Mini, yeah, it'll still be an upgrade, and I'll probably save some money by opting for the Mini instead of a Pro, but export times are absolutely what impacts how quickly these videos you're watching get out to you. And you guys know me, I'm kind of the guy that's been known for trying to get videos up as quickly as possible, sometimes pre-making videos before the announcement is actually made. And the quicker I'm able to film, edit, and export and upload those videos, the more relevant my content can be, and the quicker we can get those videos out. And of course, I don't have to sit around waiting for a video to finish exporting. At least with Final Cut, you can't really edit videos as they're exporting, and I know that there's ways around that, but I've messed around with those different settings, and it just slows down your whole editing process when you know you're exporting a huge video in the background. And if you're editing videos in real time and exporting simultaneously, the export is going to take longer. So basically, the faster chip I can get, the faster I can make my videos, and I'm still basically doing 2 or 3 pieces of content a day. So I honestly wouldn't mind dropping 5 Gs on a machine that could export today's videos at an astounding rate so that basically a couple minutes after editing them, they're already done and exported. That would be pretty sweet, and because I use my computer pretty much every single day, I'm okay with spending that much money on it. The only compromise probably if the Mac Pro starting price is like $5 grand or $6 grand is that I would likely have to settle with the default storage configuration, which is a bit of an annoyance. M1X Mac Mini, I could easily see myself maxing out to 4 or 8 terabytes because the Mac Mini itself is probably going to start around $1,000 or $1,100. At least the Intel one is currently the one they're still selling. But the Mac Pro, if it's still 256 gigs by default, that's really gonna annoy me. And if it ends up costing 7 or 8 grand to get a terabyte or 2 with it, that would make me less interested in it. So you can see the dilemma in my head, essentially. If they're miraculously able to start the Mac Pro down at like $4,000, and that means with the upgraded storage it can still be sub $6 grand, then I could perhaps justify it. I could even consider selling my iMac Pro to kind of offset that cost, but it all depends on if the M1X Mac Mini actually ends up being a thing. There's still a chance that could end up getting scrapped, and it depends on what the starting price of the Mac Pro is, which I'm really hoping is lower than what it currently is, and I don't think that's unreasonable considering most of the Apple Silicon lineup that's replacing its Intel position in the lineup almost always ends up being either the same price or cheaper. In the case of the Mac Mini, it actually got cheaper. I'm hoping that'll be the same case with the Mac Pro, the design being smaller, more compact, less modular. That could allow like a super duper powerful desktop Mac for under $6,000. So I hope that makes sense. Hopefully you guys could understand where I'm coming from a bit with this one. Let me know what suggestions or what you guys think my next Mac should be. Should I actually instead opt for a 16-inch MacBook Pro, or should I just keep using my iMac Pro for another 4 years? That's probably the responsible thing to do, but less exciting. All that good stuff, let me know down below. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.